Okay, we're
Is that
resuming.
subtle enough for you?
Good.
Good, Bob.
You're the great Irishman, Bob.
The Irishman are the drummer.
Oh, they are, aren't they?
My great pleasure, honor. With no further ado, I have no idea what he's going to talk about. So, yeah, that. Dr. Matthew Johnson, thank you. He is a young rock star now. Yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
And all because I answered the phone one day.
Tonight we're going to talk about gardening and how to grow cucumbers. Actually, what I want to do is three things tonight. One is yay, Steve Bachman. Now, for those of us here who know Steve fairly well, meaning me, myself and I, the guy's a humble guy, he's a salt of the earth, he's really shy, he's not that talkative, and I was thinking he was going to pull off maybe 20, 30 minutes. We might have to pull some teeth out of him, and he stood up here and hit a grand slam home run.
Yeah.
And delivered a presentation that just blew me away.
Thank you.
And there's no way that you can listen to his story and think that he's fibbing. He was speaking straight from the heart and telling the truth. So that's one thing I wanted to do is awesome job, Steve Bachman. Awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Second thing I want to do is fill in some holes. How many people have read the book? Get your hands up. How many people don't have my book? Get your hands up. There's books on the table out there. And this is Cynthia, my wife. Go get a book and give her the money. Not because I want your money, but because you need to read my book. Anyone who's sitting here tonight who's read my book will agree with me. You need to read my book.
Right.
Okay?
You're here.
You will finish it in 2 to 3 days.
Once you start it, you can't stop. And just like Steve gave a delivery that blew your mind tonight, when you read my book, I'm going to give you a delivery that's going to blow your mind. You need to read the book. So if you don't have the book, before you leave, get the book. Cynthia's holding the camera over there. Give her your money. Okay?
Or your life.
Or no, just get the book, read the book.
No firstborn children.
Yeah. So, filling in some holes, and without giving away the book completely, 50 years ago, when the Patterson-Gimlin film was shot with the female Sasquatch walking away down the Bluff Creek, okay? And people were going, oh, that's real, no, that's fake. It was real. And that was done on purpose. Everything I'm telling you tonight, I'm telling you because I was eventually told that was done on purpose. That was done on purpose to get the attention of the human race because they wanted us to come into the forest to look for them. And now we're talking about a funnel effect. Funnels are big and wide at the top, and then they narrow down to a very narrow opening at the bottom. Okay? So, I'm 6'9", 6'10" with my shoes on. I played basketball in my youth, so I'm going to use a sports analogy because that's my life. A At the top of the funnel, you got kindergarten, first graders, second graders, lots of kids playing basketball. Then they get to, middle school and the kids get cut. They get to high school, more kids get cut. They go to college, more kids get cut. And then out of the college basketball population, less than 1% of the graduating seniors make it into the NBA. And then in the NBA, they've got 2 all-star teams. And then out of the 2 all-star teams, they have 1 dream team for the Olympic team. And then out of the Olympic team, they have 1 most valuable player. They wanted us out there looking for them. Then they're hoping that some people won't freak out and they'll keep coming back into the woods. And then eventually they're hoping that some people will understand that they're not dumb giant mountain apes. They're not descendants of Gigantopithecus. They're actually an intelligent sentient being. And then eventually they're hoping that we would come across portals. And then they were hoping that some people wouldn't freak out and would keep coming back in and keep poking at the portal until they eventually figured out how to reopen the portal. Well, you're looking at the first person on planet Earth who figured out how to repeatedly open a portal. That's a fact. That's not a fib. Once I got to that point, Onks engaged me. Cynthia and I were down out in the mountains in southern Oregon, sleeping under the stars. Onks woke me up and engaged me in a 2-hour mind speak. And Onks told me, because we had stumbled across a portal the previous year that opened up to a world with a red sky and dark scraggly vegetation, and he said, do you remember that portal? Do you remember the red sky and the dark scraggly vegetation? I said, yes. He said, that's our home world. And he said, our planet is dying. And it's been dying for a long time because our sun is burning out. And he said, a long time ago, an ancient alien race put portals all over the universe. And a small percentage of our population, about 25%, figured out how to manipulate these portals. They were born with the innate ability to manipulate the portals. And when they went through the portals, they could only take themselves through the portal. They could take no one else with them. When their sun started dying out, their council of 12, the elders on their planet, took those 25% and said, please go through these portals, start checking out worlds, come back with a report so we can find a planet to colonize. So they went out, they did their explorations, they came back, they presented the data to the council, and the council selected Earth to colonize. They sent 25% of their population, the individuals who were able to manipulate the portals, through the portals of Earth. They came over during the time of our dinosaurs. They've been on this planet longer than we've been on this planet. Over time, as the sun was burning out, and it takes a long time for a sun to burn out, their vegetation was getting worse and worse, and they were slowly but surely dying. Onks said, we need a shunt. Now, earlier Steve was telling you that polyp was not in his vocabulary. Well, I'm a psychologist. I don't work with my hands. I'm not a builder. I'm not like Steve. You don't want me building your home. You don't want me building your office skyscraper, and you most certainly don't want me building the bridge that you need to drive over Puget Sound on. You don't want me being that guy. That is not me, but I'm a psychologist, and I'm really good at working with people. I'm good at working with kids and adolescents and adults and couples and families. I'm good at doing psyche evals and court testimony, but I am not good at building things. And Ox, during this mind speak, was saying we need a shunt. We need a shunt. Can you help us with a shunt? Well, the word shunt was not in my vocabulary. And I said, well, do you mean like a stent? And he said, yes, but we need a shunt. And I said, do you mean like you need something to help you keep a portal open? And he said, yes. We need you to help us keep the portal open. So whoever's dying, whoever's still in the home world can come over to Earth. Because again, they can only go through the portal themselves. They can't take anybody else with them. So everyone else who's stuck on their dying home world is stuck there because they can't get through. He also shared with me how they're intrapsychically connected, and what one knows, they all know. What one feels, they all feel. And he shared when the ones who could travel back to their home world to stay in touch with their family and friends went through the portal to visit, they were like a thumb drive. And they download what one person knows they all know, what one person feels they all feel. So they go from Earth to their home world, download everything. But the exact opposite is also true. When they go from their dying home world back to Earth, what one knows they all know. What one feels they all feel. And Oaks gave me 30 seconds of being able to feel what their family and friends on their dying home world were feeling. 30 seconds of a collective despair. 30 seconds of a collective fear. Of an uncertain future that most likely included death. And he stopped and he asked me, will you help us? You're the first human who's ever figured out how to reopen a portal. We need your help. Can you help us with a shunt? And I said, I am no good with my hands, but I know a lot of people, and I'll put together a team, and I'll do my best. Well, I had just finished speaking on Coast to Coast AM after Bob Gimlin, and this retired physicist from MIT out of Massachusetts got a hold of me. He had been doing research on the Bermuda Triangle, and he said that what I described about the portal in my research area fit what he was experiencing with the Bermuda Triangle, which he thought was a big portal. And so I told him everything that I just told you about the mind speak. There's more to that mind speak. You'll have to get the book and read it. But he said, yeah, I'll help you. Well, a week or two later, I call him up to update him. And he said, send me that gizmo device and I'll tweak it and see if we can kill one of those Bigfoot and turn the body in and prove their existence once and for all. And I'm like, what? That's not what we talked about. And I knew right then he was off the team because, you know, he was in his mid-80s, so maybe he had dementia. Or maybe he was working both sides of the fence. Or maybe he just thought I was crazy and he wanted to get rid of me. So he said what he said. But any way you look at it, he's off the team, which puts me back at square one. I have no team. Then out of the blue, I get this email from a Steve Bachman guy. Now keep in mind, I get emails every day about Bigfoot. I get Facebook PMs every day about Bigfoot. And I try to do my best to respond to the correspondence that I get, at least in a short, brief, thank you, I enjoyed it, goodbye. Because I don't have time to just get in depth with all these emails. But I try to say, I read it, thank you, I appreciate it. Well, he describes himself, he describes that he works with his hands, refurbishes tractors, and oh yeah, by the way, I made this electromagnetic pulsating device and here's a picture of it. And I'm like, what? This is awesome. Now you tell me, what are the odds out of the blue, at the right moment, that that would happen? I'm telling you right now that they were working behind the scenes to bring us together. That was not an accident. So I call him up right away, we talk, we planned the whole trip, like Steve said. I didn't want him to bring the machine, like Steve said. I wanted them to get to know him. Last minute, the night before we're supposed to meet, I call him up just to make sure that he doesn't forget anything, because when you drive 400 or 500 miles to get somewhere, you want to make sure that you have everything you need, including your own pillow. You know, so I'm just doing a checklist with him, and he goes, man, can't I bring the machine just to show it to you and Mike, just to talk about it? We don't have to turn it on. I said, great, yep, go ahead, do it. Well, we get there that first night, and we're set up camp, it gets a little dark, and I have Steve and Mike walk the perimeter of the camp, because a couple weeks earlier, Cynthia and I were there, and we had the juju, the electromagnetic energy from the Oregon House of Mystery, the Oregon Vortex with us, and we came across an area in the base camp that kind of started lighting up in a portal-like fashion. And so I sent Steve and Mike around without the juju, walked the perimeter, and they walked it twice, couldn't find anything, which I knew that's what was going to happen. Steve went to bed. Steve told you the story, got worked on. What Steve didn't tell you was that very next morning, around 4:30, Steve, myself, and Mike heard this stomp, 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 and then a rrr. And this black bear was trying to come into camp, and Zor stands 10 feet tall, size 26-inch tracks, was stomping the ground to scare off the black bear. The black bear challenged Zorth, so Zorth uncloaked. Okay. And he stomped, stomped, stomped again and started going toward the black bear, and the black bear went, turned around and ran away. Zorth walked back to the edge of camp, and I could see his chest and shoulders, his head, and his glowing red eyes, and in my mind I said, you're keeping us safe, right? And he said, yes, that was me. Go back to sleep. So when we woke up that morning, Mike and I were like, did you hear that stuff? And Steve says, guys, that's nothing. Let me tell you what happened to me all night long. And he had an awesome story that he shared with you guys. So we went off the mountain, we went to the Oregon House of Mystery, we came back, had the juju, the electromagnetic juju, and I sent Mike and Steve around the base camp again at night, and this time they found the area that Cynthia and I found a couple weeks earlier. So we're standing over there and we're looking at some stuff, glittering lights, kind of a foggy thing of light. And then all of a sudden, up on the hill that's about 100-foot elevation above the base camp, all three of us hear this 900-pound owl go off.
Zeus, it's okay.
And it did it over and over and over, and we're just standing there. And eventually it stops. We go back at the base camp. It's pitch dark. We're sitting in our chairs. And Steve and Mike are like, let's go up there. Let's go up there right now. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then all of a sudden Zorth mind speaks and he says, no, don't come up here tonight. However, you're welcome to come up here tomorrow night and sit before the Council of 12. And we're like, the Council of 12? Cool. So we go to bed that night. Steve gets worked on again. And the next day we go off the mountain. We come back. I'm tired. I do a lot of driving. They get to do some napping while I drive. And I want to lay down for a quick power nap before we grab our chairs and go to the top of the hill and sit before the Council of 12. So I lay down on my cot and I'm immediately thrusted into a vision. I didn't fall asleep and have a dream. I was put into a trance and I had a vision. And in this vision, I'm flying over this green lush forest, about 100 feet or more above the tops of this green lush forest. I'm flying and I'm flying and I'm flying. And then I shift over and there's a coastline, blue ocean water, just flying, and it's just beautiful. And there's not a sign of anything there other than just this beautiful planet and blue sky. And then I notice that the sky starts to turn red, and I automatically assume the sun's beginning to set. But as the sky is getting redder and redder, this green lush vegetation starts getting more dark and scraggly and dying. And the sky gets red, and then I hear in my mind, this is our home world. We need your help, please. And then from that trance, I went into a state of sleep and dreaming, and then I got woken up at 8:45 like I asked. We grabbed our chairs, it was still enough light. We walked up to the top of the hill. We positioned our chairs, and then Zor started engaging me in mind speak. He took me on a stroll down memory lane where I had been into the Northern Cascades with Lori Simmons, and we were in her research area, and more or less, to make it really short, she took me to the tree that her father discovered where something was inside the tree. And she thought it was under the tree. Well, when we approached that tree, I had my parabolic microphone dish recording, and I didn't know this till later on after we got home and I listened to it. There were two voices whispering to each other as we approached the tree. Spoken language. I get her up the hill on the other side of the tree, which she never did before in her life because she's too scared to get up there. She's standing on this log about 15 feet away from the tree, and I'm like, get closer to the tree. No, I'm good here. She's like really scared, really anxious. I put my arm around her waist and gently get her off the log and moving her toward the tree. Well, the tree starts growling at me. And then she responds when she hears the growl, and she goes, oh, it's okay, big guy, I'm fine. Hi, big guy, how are you doing? Then all of a sudden you hear from inside the tree, knock, 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 knock. Boom, 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 boom. Like it's happy. She's happy, it's happy. And then I go, Lori, I'm not making a move on you. I just want to do an experiment. Do you trust me? Yes. So I slowly put my arm around her waist and move her closer to the tree again. Her anxiety goes up through the roof. The tree starts growling at me again. I have all this recorded. It's on my SoundCloud.com file. Anyone can listen to it. She starts talking to it again. Oh, I'm fine. This is good. I'm happy. And all of a sudden you hear that pop, 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 pop. She's happy. The tree's happy. Then Zor takes me on another stroll down memory lane. So shortly after my family's first encounter with one, on the mountain above the Oregon Caves on July 1st, 2000, I had this idiot, Eric Beckjord, out of the San Francisco Bay Area, call my private practice office 25 to 50 times a day. He was ticking off my secretary. He'd disguise his voice trying to get through, and sometimes he succeeded. And when he got through and I'd pick up the phone, he'd be yelling at me, "They're in the trees, man! They're in the trees!" And I'd tell him to shut up, take his medication, and leave me alone, or you're going to hear from my attorney and I'm going to file stalking charges. Then Zor asked me, count the trees from your left to your right. So I look and I start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He said, count the trees again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then he said, in the mind speak, we're in the trees. He said, we are beings of light. We are the orbs. We go into the trees during the day to soak up the energy from the sunlight and to take the nutrients out of the ground through the roots. And then we come out of the trees at night to play and to do the other things we need to do. Here I was, thinking just like Mike and Steve, we're going to sit before the council of 12. We're expecting 12 upright, hairy bipedal primates to walk in front of us. Then he asked me to ask Steve and Mike, count the trees to yourself from your left to your right. So they count. How many guys? 12. Okay, Zorth is asking, recount the trees. So they count again. How many? 12. How many? 12. Then all of a sudden Mike and Steve at the same time, simultaneously, they're in the trees. Yep. So I explained to them what Zor told me. And then Zor said, you can go ahead and go back down. And then as Steve reported, that's when we turned on the machine the first night for an hour and a half until the batteries drained. And then we got that first night around 2,300 through. Zor said that's about 10% of what we need to get through. And I said, well, what do you mean? That's just over 23,000 left to go. You mean total of 23,000? And he said, yes. I said, that's not even the size of Grants Pass, Oregon. And he said, you're right, it's not. He said, but you need to understand, we would be doing this if there was only one left. We need your help. Will you help us? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to finish the job. Now, the whole battery thing drained like Steve had talked about. Steve had to go. Mike and I were still there. Mike was jazzed up. Mike took $600 of his own money, bought extra batteries and chargers for all 6 batteries. We went over to Grady's mother's house, hooked them all up in the garage to charge all 6 batteries, and then brought the batteries and Grady, my son, back up to the mountain. Grady was there in June of 2014 when we discovered the portal. And I wanted Grady to be there for this historic event. So he came back for that. we took Steve's 2 batteries that drained the night before and hooked his device up to those same 2 batteries. Those batteries ran for 6 hours and did not lose their charge because exactly what Steve reported to you earlier, they kept their charge. Because Zorth was listening to Steve and what he was saying, and they left the batteries alone. So the same 2 batteries that got drained and could no longer function or run the machine the previous night ran that same machine for 6 hours the next night without losing any charge at all. And they were doubling their capacity of how many they were getting through the portal. That first night they were averaging 2,000 an hour. That second night they averaged 4,000 an hour. I was asking Zorth, how are you doubling your capacity? He said, we were caught off guard the first night, so we better organize ourselves on this side of the portal, and we sent others through the other side of the portal to our home world to get them ready to go to come through. And that's how they were able to double their capacity. Well, that night we accomplished the objective. We brought 23,542 souls through the portal, hence the Exodus. 3 died within an hour of arrival, which was better here than there. At least they finally got to see Earth and they died among family and friends rather than alone on their dying home world. And that next morning, Mike is there, I'm there, Grady's there. Grady and I are still sleeping. It's about 4:30 in the morning, and Mike Kincaid gets woken up out of his sleep. And he's laying there, and all of a sudden in the trees around the camp, pop, pop, pop. And Mike starts to count. Pop, 4, pop, 5, all the way up to pop, 12. And then it stopped. You see, Zorth was not mind speaking with Steve. Zorth was not mind speaking with Mike. And Mike was our computer geek analyst who always has to sift through the data to make sure it's legit. And after this whole experience, Mike was kind of wrestling with his head. How do I know Matt wasn't making this crap up? Right? I mean, I could have just been manipulating the heck out of these guys, right? What a bunch of idiots. So I'm going to tell them this whole